There is a special kind of silence that settles just before humiliation. It's weighty, pressing in on my chest while sweat tickles my spine. My sketches covered the battered old easel in the back of the studio, wrinkled edges flapping beneath the window's draft. I stood as straight as I could, neck tight, throat raw. My entire world measured in graphite lines, draped fabric. 20 hours of kneeling on a cement floor stood vulnerable to the critique of assembled classmates and, more menacing, my family. The professor, Madame Darrell, glided along in her habitual way, perfectly aloof, red lips and chignon unbroken. She crowds toward my work so close her perfume interrupts my thoughts. She does not look at me, only at the dress form besmirched by the fledgling dress I had stitched through the previous 3 nights. "Explain, Sylvie," she says. Her words cleaner than the starched collar at her neck. I swallow and try to summon clarity. I wanted to combine tradition and rebellion. The bodice is inspired by 19th century Parisian. Laughter, thin and brittle, crackles from Victor, one of the safer sons of bourgeois comfort at the front. Tradition alors, with that fringe? Maman won't wear that to brunch! A couple of the others titter, eyes darting from my hands to the collapsing hemline. I keep going. But the limes are meant to escape the rules. It's asymmetrical because I wanted the wearer to feel wild, free of taste. Maybe, murmurs Margot. My cheeks are on fire. A sharper voice cuts in, my mother. She'd insisted on attending, to see what you've been doing. She's perched in her camel coat, legs crossed, eyes hard as marbles. I don't understand, Sylvie. You had top marks in lycée, a place at Sciences Po. You throw all that away to sew rags? Dad is beside her, silent, but I can feel him retreating from the whole affair, already imagining himself among coworkers, explaining this away as a youthful mistake. Their disappointment felt deeper than any student mockery. It's like being stripped bare, stumbling blind across endless glaring light. I fixed my eyes on a nail sticking out of the floor. My words shrank to whispers. The critiques splintered, close friends stayed quiet, perhaps pitying. The rest leered. Madame Darrell adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat. Bravery can look like foolishness, Mademoiselle Chartier, but only if you lack follow-through. She raised one brow. If you seek chaos, dare to achieve harmony inside it. They walked on to the next student, my dress left on its cheap mannequin, my sketchbook curling in the growing heat. Coming home from that critique, every step felt tighter, the street's familiar gray stones rising like accusations. I thought about taking another route back, looping through alleys so I would not pass the old bakery where my parents bumped into old colleagues. But the cold was getting into my bones. I stepped faster, arms wrapped, hunched. Inside, my parents sat in the kitchen. My mother's mouth curved into a thin, withered line above her mug of tea. "Will you ever listen, Sylvie?" she said, voice low but edged. "You were always stubborn, but this is embarrassing." I wanted to shout, to ask her if formulaic law school or business careers filled her with any warmth at all. But anger slunk away, replaced by something heavier. "Sorry, Mama," I whispered, then retreated to my room. Shame tasted bitter, metallic. I spent hours scrolling through old images, iconic runways, old Vogue covers, bold lines drawn by artists who started in obscurity too. It helped, a little. Mostly, I wrote lists, fabrics to try, names of forgotten Parisian tailors fallen from fashion. A list of whys, too, in case I ever needed reminding. The years blurred but never softened the edges of rejection. School finished, barely. My grades lingered in the almost range, teachers nodding at my experiments but keeping their distance. My internships paid nothing. I lived on bread, bitter coffee, noodles stained orange with the dregs of canned soup. Back then, fashion designer was a vision you carried in your back teeth, chewed, cracked, resistant. People told me it was romantic, but really it's a grind. 100 thrown-out patterns for every one that works. Criticism before compliments. Endless rooms too bright, too quiet. Some nights, I'd walk the old bridges of Paris, souls worn to translucence, watching the gold spill from windows into the Seine. I'd pass boutiques, lights left burning to tempt the night's last stragglers. I pressed my hands to cold glass and admired the seams I could not afford, sketched them in my battered notebook while swallowing envy, turning it into hunger. The real struggle wasn't external. Not family, not broke stretches or skimpy meals. It was doing the work every day while hearing, in the corner of your ear, the remembered laughter of Victor, the disappointed sigh of my mother. Even in my dreams, their voices outlasted applause. I kept at it anyway. Eventually, an atelier in the Fifth, tiny, paint-peeling, moldy pipes, hired me to assist an old pattern maker named Michel. He was unsparing, but I learned how to lay a sleeve so it looked like it belonged to a living, breathing woman. I learned fabrics, cutting, carving shape from bolts of sorrowful gray wool. I learned how to breathe through the loneliness, how to ignore passers-by who laughed if they drips so slowly you don't see the change. My personal designs, a dress here, a jacket there, began to gather curious eyes, sometimes other interns, sometimes a boutique owner's cousin, sometimes, incredibly, an editor's daughter who'd lost her way on a rainy night. I let their quiet interest feed me, even if for now it was only crumbs. Years passed. Michel retired, and left without prospects again, I started taking in repair jobs to pay my rent, relining coats, fixing hens for the elderly, doctoring evening gowns for college students desperate for a night of glamour. One evening, fixing beading on a dress in a cafe, a woman approached. She introduced herself as Elise Martin, her hair slicked back, her lipstick severe. She asked to see my portfolio. I handed it over, shivering. Weeks later, I wanted to say yes with my whole body, but I only nodded, cheeks flaming, hands clutching my notebook as if it contained a spell. A storm breaks worst at 4 a.m. I learned this the night before my collection was set to debut. Models needed adjustments, seams gaped. A final piece, my favorite, was stained by spilled espresso. My fingers screamed, knuckles bruised, mind racing with the old carnivorous doubts. Victor's jeer, my mother's icy will you ever. I sewed through sunrise, cutting away every mistake until my hands trembled. Opening night isn't like what you see in documentaries. There's too much tape, steam, adrenaline. It's women in half-zip dresses, someone twisting my pinned hair, a makeup artist with a brush between her teeth. I perched on a folding chair as Elise panned through the lineup, nodded, told a photographer, that one, focus, and moved on. The lights felt seismic. My designs, soft, wild, deliberately imperfect, moved down the runway, silk shuddering like wings. Models wore my chaos, my hope, my midnight hunger stitched into real form. People watched. Some took notes. Some closed their eyes as if to breathe it in. At the end, the small applause cracked through my hearing like thunder. 3 buyers wanted appointments. 1 woman wept. Later, I barely recall packing up, walking home in a stunned hush, but I didn't sleep. There was only the warm rush of proof. I'd conjured something out of the void, and people saw it, valued it, even if only for a night. In time, other commissions arrived. Elise's boutique grew from a single cramped shop to 3. She named me her head designer on a bitter January day dulled by sleet. We traveled, to Milan, to London, to New York, scouting fabric, meeting buyers, muddling through foreign supermarkets. I called my parents on a Sunday morning, heart hammering. My mother answered. She always picked up. I told her, "They want me to show at Paris Fashion Week. It's one piece, only one, but it's my own line." There was a pause. For once, she sounded uncertain. "That's very good, Sylvie." I heard a clatter, my father in the background, his half-swallowed, "Ah bon?" Both cautious, as if a compliment would make me flicker, vanish. But I didn't need their conviction anymore, only their presence. Paris in spring, yellow daffodils, cafes opening wide. The air carrying rain and exhaust. The morning of my show, I woke before dawn, the city outside shifting in the blue hush. I walked the familiar streets, the old bakery, the